Alien princess, left in tears after a human medic saves her. The stars above the border sector burned like cold fire. Broken ships drifted in silence, their lights dead, their hulls torn open by battle. This place had once been a meeting ground for peace talks between humans and the Valari Empire. Now it was only a graveyard. Princess Lyra of the Valari lay hidden inside the remains of a shattered escort cruiser. Her silver skin was stained dark with blood. One of her wings was torn and her breathing came in weak, shaking pulls. The attack had been sudden. Pirates, or maybe hired killers, had struck without warning. Her guards had fought hard at first, but when the ship was breached, fear spread faster than fire. They had left her. Lyra remembered their faces as they sealed the escape pods. None of them looked back. None of them spoke her name. She was their future ruler, their sacred blood, yet they chose survival over duty. The last thing she heard before losing consciousness was the sound of their ship jumping away. Now, she was alone. Outside the wreck, human ships moved carefully through the debris field. Their armor was scarred, their engines damaged, but they were still searching. The humans had come for peace talks too. Now they were counting survivors. On one of the smaller human vessels, a medic named Daniel Carter checked his gear. His brown hair was stuck to his forehead with sweat, and his hands shook slightly from exhaustion. He had been awake for nearly 30 hours. Still, when the sensor officer called out a faint life sign, Daniel moved without hesitation. "Where?" he asked. The officer pointed to the broken Valari cruiser. Inside the main hull, signal is weak. Daniel grabbed his medical pack and headed for the airlock. "I'm going." The ship's commander frowned. "That hull is unstable, and it's alien."
Daniel paused and looked back.
"It's alive." That was enough for him. The shuttle cut through twisted metal and drifting bodies. Daniel guided it close, then forced open a hole in the hull. Inside, the air was thin and cold. Lights flickered. Debris floated like ghosts. He found her near what had once been a command chamber. At first he thought she was dead. Then her chest moved. Daniel's heart dropped. He had treated aliens before, but never Valeria royalty. They were tall, winged beings with smooth silver skin and dark, wide eyes. Stories about them filled human space. Proud, cruel, cold. None of that mattered now. Lyra lay curled on the floor, one wing bent at an unnatural angle. A shard of metal had pierced her side. Her blood shimmered faintly in the low light. Daniel knelt beside her and checked for signs of life. Her pulse was weak but steady. He ran his scanner, adjusting it for alien biology as best he could. "You're not dying today," he whispered, though he knew she could not hear him. As he worked, the wreck groaned around them. Alarms echoed from far-off compartments. The ship was breaking apart. The commander's voice came through Daniel's comm end. "Medic, you need to pull back. The structure is failing." Daniel looked at the princess, then at the scanner. "She won't survive transport without stabilization. We don't have time." Daniel clenched his jaw. "I need 5 minutes." Silence followed. Then 3 minutes. That's all. Daniel worked fast. He sealed the wound in her side with a biopatch. He injected a stabilizer meant for humans, modified with alien-safe limits. It was risky. He knew that. But leaving her was worse. As he lifted her, Lyra's eyes fluttered open. Fear flooded her face the moment she saw him. Her breathing quickened. Her hand weakly moved toward a broken weapon nearby. Daniel froze slowly. He raised one hand, palm open. "Easy," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." She did not understand his words, but she heard the tone. Calm. Gentle. Her vision blurred. The human before her looked damaged and tired. His armor was scratched, his suit torn at the shoulder. Blood, not hers, stained his sleeve. Why was he still here? Valari were taught that humans were monsters. Death-world creatures who thrived on violence. Her tutors had said humans would kill without reason, take pleasure in suffering. Yet this one was touching her wounds with care. The wreck shuddered again. A loud crack echoed through the hull. Daniel swore under his breath and lifted her fully into his arms. She was lighter than he expected. As he carried her toward the shuttle, a blast threw him against the wall. Pain shot through his leg. He nearly dropped her, but tightened his grip instead. "Not dropping you," he muttered. The shuttle door sealed just as the wreck collapsed behind them. Back on the human ship, alarms rang as the princess was rushed into the medical bay. Daniel placed her gently on the bed and began working again, even as his own injury bled through his suit. Nurse Lisa Morgan hurried in. "Daniel, you're hurt." "Later," he said. "Help me with her." Lisa stared at the alien on the bed. "That's a Valeri. I know. You know what this means." Daniel nodded. "I also know she's dying." They worked together in tense silence. Monitors beeped as Lyra's condition stabilized, then worsened, then steadied again. Her biology reacted strangely to human tools, but slowly, her vitals improved. Through half-open eyes, Lyra watched them. She saw how Daniel's hand shook when he thought no one noticed. She saw how he refused pain meds so they could save supplies for her. She saw Lisa argue quietly with him, then give in. No one had ever treated her this way before, not even her own people. Hours later, Daniel finally stepped back. "She'll live," he said quietly.
Relief washed over the room.
Daniel sank onto a chair, exhaustion hitting him all at once. Blood dripped from his leg onto the floor. Lisa sighed. "You're an idiot," he smiled weakly. "Yeah." Lyra closed her eyes, tears slipping from them without sound. She had been abandoned by those sworn to protect her, saved by someone who owed her nothing. And somewhere deep inside her something began to change. The war outside continued, but in that small medical bay a different story had begun. The medical bay was quiet except for the beeping of monitors and the soft hiss of air circulation. The human crew moved carefully around the bed where Princess Lyra lay. Her breathing had slowed to a steady rhythm, but her eyes stayed half open, watching every movement with suspicion. She did not speak, and the words of the human sounded strange to her, harsh and unfamiliar. Still, there was something in their tone, gentle, careful, that made her hesitate to look away. Daniel Carter sat in a chair near her bed, his leg pressed awkwardly against the floor. The pain from the injury he had received in the wreck throbbed constantly, but he ignored it. He had been awake for more than 36 hours now, yet he could not rest while she needed attention. Every so often he glanced at her wounds, checking the biopatch, adjusting the stabilizer. The Bellari physiology made his work difficult. Human medical training did not fully cover her species, but Daniel was smart and quick. He improvised, comparing notes with the limited alien data they had managed to download from the wreckage.
"How long until she wakes fully?" Nurse Lisa Morgan asked, her tone careful but tired.
She had been helping him for hours without rest. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Could be hours. Could be longer. Alien biology is tricky, especially after trauma like this. Bud.
Lisa frowned.
"She's awake enough to look at us." Daniel nodded. He watched as Lyra shifted slightly on the bed. Her wings twitched in discomfort, and she tried to sit up. Daniel reached out, gently pressing her shoulders back down. "Easy," he whispered. "You need to rest." Lyra's wide eyes focused on him. She could not understand his words fully, but she understood the meaning. Her whole life had taught her that humans were cruel, that they would take her, hurt her, or kill her if given the chance. But this one, this human, was different. He did not hurt her. He did not demand anything. He only worked to keep her alive. She wanted to speak, but her throat felt dry and tight. She tried again, a soft sound escaping her lips, and Daniel leaned closer. "Take your time," he said gently. "We're not going anywhere." The Bellari princess studied him. She noticed the way his brown hair stuck to his forehead, the sweat on his tired face, the slight trembling of his hands. He looked human, weak, mortal. Yet he risked everything to help her. No one in her world had ever done that. Not her guards, not her tutors, not her advisors. Humans were supposed to be selfish, dangerous, unpredictable. But this human, he was risking his life without a second thought. "Daniel," Lisa whispered, watching the moment between them. "Do you think she's going to be okay?" He did not answer immediately. He studied her carefully. Her vitals were stable for now, but if she moved too much, if her body rejected the human stabilizers, she could crash at any moment. "She will live," he said finally. "But she's not safe yet. We have to monitor her closely." Hours passed. Lyra grew stronger slowly. The biopatch began to integrate with her alien tissue. The stabilizers worked to keep her heart and wings functioning properly, and her breathing became more natural. She still did not speak, still did not move freely, but she was conscious, and consciousness brought fear. She kept her eyes on Daniel, watching every movement, testing whether his kindness was real. The human medic noticed her gaze. "You're awake," he said softly. "That's good. You're safe here." Lyra tilted her head slightly, trying to study him. She wanted to ask questions, to demand answers. Why had he saved her? What did he want in return? Humans were unpredictable, but in her life, kindness had always come with conditions. Yet she could see no condition here. No greed, no threat. Only care. She remembered the attack, the moments before she was left alone. Her guards had promised protection, but they had fled. She remembered the fear, the coldness, the sense of being abandoned. And now this human, this small, mortal creature, had saved her from certain death. The thought made tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back, afraid to show weakness, but her body betrayed her. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Daniel noticed. He reached out instinctively, but paused. "I won't touch you without your permission," he said softly. "Just rest." Lyra stared at him, confused. No human had ever respected her choice before. Every interaction in her life had been controlled, guided, or forced. Yet here was someone who acted differently. She wanted to cry, to collapse, but she did not trust herself. She stayed still, letting him work. Days passed in the medical bay. Daniel and Lisa worked tirelessly. The ship's commander allowed them to focus on her, recognizing that her survival could impact diplomatic talks. Lyra's wounds healed slowly, her strength returning. She began to speak a few words of human language, repeating simple phrases Daniel taught her: safe, help, thank you. Each word was new, strange, but meaningful. "Thank you," she whispered one morning, her voice shaking. Daniel smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just doing my job." She looked at him, confused. "But you save me not for reward?" Daniel shrugged. "Sometimes helping is enough." Her eyes widened. She did not understand the concept fully. In Valari culture, acts of kindness always had meaning. Political advantage, debt owed, leverage. Here was a human offering care for nothing. She wanted to ask more questions, but another challenge arrived. The alien empire had noticed her absence. Commanders demanded her return. They sent ships into human-controlled space, insisting on immediate handover. Daniel watched the alert and frowned. "We can't just hand her over. She's still recovering. She could die if we move her too soon." Lisa frowned too. "They'll call it kidnapping." "Let them," Daniel said quietly. "She needs care first. After that, we can negotiate." Lyra listened, trying to understand. These humans who were supposed to be dangerous were now protecting her against her own people. She felt something unfamiliar, a small spark of trust, maybe even hope. For the first time, she let herself relax in the presence of humans. She allowed them to check her wings, her heart rate, her breathing. She let them administer medicine even when it stung. She started to understand that not all humans were cruel. Not all acts had a hidden agenda. At night, when the ship was quiet, she sometimes stared at Daniel from her bed. He slept in the chair, leaning against the wall, his leg bandaged, exhaustion heavy on his face. He had given everything to keep her alive. Sleep, strength, safety. He did not ask for thanks, did not demand attention. He simply stayed. One evening, Lyra whispered to herself, barely audible, "Why?" Daniel stirred but did not wake fully. Lisa, who was on watch, heard her. She approached carefully. "Why what? Why you help me?" Lyra asked, her words broken but clear. Lisa smiled softly. "Because we don't leave people behind, that's all." The words puzzled her. She had been taught all her life that mercy was weakness, that helping others could be dangerous. But here it was, in front of her. A human had chosen mercy, even at risk to themselves. Over the next days, Lyra's trust grew. She began to respond when Daniel spoke, even trying to mimic simple words. She let him examine her wings more closely, let him move her carefully. She even smiled once, a small, hesitant gesture, when he joked quietly about the taste of human rations compared to Volari food. Rumors began to spread in the ship. The crew whispered in the corridors. "She's a princess," some said. "Why are we saving her? She's our enemy." Daniel ignored them. He focused on her recovery. He treated her as a patient, not as an enemy. One afternoon, the alarms rang. An incoming ship from Volari space was approaching fast. They demanded immediate handover of the princess. Daniel and Lisa exchanged worried glances. Lyra, hearing the alarm, stiffened in fear. "Stay calm," Daniel said, placing a hand gently on her arm. "You are safe here. We won't let anything happen to you." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not only from pain. They were from gratitude, confusion, and something else, a strange warmth she had never felt. She did not know what it was, but it frightened her almost as much as the approaching enemy. The commander of the human ship appeared. "Medic, we can't hold them off forever." "What's her condition?" Daniel stood tall, though pain lanced through his leg. "She will not survive transport yet. She needs at least 48 more hours of observation."
If you move her now, she could die.
The commander hesitated. He looked at the princess. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the medical lights, her eyes wide and filled with fear. He saw what Daniel had seen. The fragility of life, the determination of someone risking everything for another being. Finally, he nodded. "We buy time, but you are responsible for her, medic." Daniel accepted the weight without complaint. He had already made his choice. He would not leave her side. He would not abandon her, no matter what. For Lyra, those days in the medical bay became a turning point. She began to see humans differently, not as monsters, but as beings capable of compassion. The spark of hope grew stronger. She began to imagine that maybe, just maybe, there was a different path forward, a chance to survive not only this attack but also the prejudice and hatred she had always known. And every time she looked at Daniel, she saw the hands that did not harm, the face that did not judge, and the promise of life in a galaxy that often seemed determined to destroy her. The stars outside the ship kept turning. The war continued in distant sectors, but inside that small medical bay the first threads of trust were woven between human and alien, and the princess realized that her story had only just begun. Days passed. But the threat outside the human ship grew stronger. Volari ships appeared in the sensors almost constantly. Each arrival brought tense calls over the comms, demands for the immediate return of Princess Lyra, accusations of kidnapping, threats of war. The humans had managed to slow them, but they could not fight forever. Inside the medical bay, Lyra's strength improved. Her breathing was steadier, her wings lifted more easily, and her pulse was almost normal. Yet she remained wary. Every time the alarm sounded, her body tensed, and her eyes darted towards the entrance. She had been taught to expect betrayal. She had been taught that even her own blood could be cruel. Daniel worked tirelessly. He stayed by her side, monitoring her vitals, adjusting the stabilizers, and improvising treatments when her alien biology reacted strangely. Some of her wounds reopened or burned unexpectedly. The human medical equipment was not designed for Volari physiology. But Daniel adapted quickly. He crafted tools from spare parts, combining alien data and human knowledge. He rarely slept, rarely ate, but he never left her side. One morning, Lyra woke fully. She stretched carefully, feeling the ache in her wings. Her first thought was fear. The alarms had been silent for hours, but she knew it could change in an instant. Daniel noticed her movement and moved to her side.
Easy, he said. Don't push yourself.
She looked at him, wide-eyed. Why you help? She asked again, her voice weak. He smiled faintly. Because you needed it, and because you are alive now. That's enough. She blinked. She did not fully understand. No one had ever helped her without asking for something. Here was a human, tired, hurt, and still giving everything to keep her alive.
You.
Not afraid? She whispered. Humans? You not afraid? Daniel shook his head. Fear is natural, but we don't let it stop us from doing what is right. Lyra studied him carefully. The concept was strange. Doing good, even when afraid. She had never seen it. She wanted to believe it, but she had been disappointed too many times. As days passed, she began to speak more. She learned simple words in human language, enough to express fear, gratitude, and curiosity. She still did not fully trust, but the fear that had dominated her first days began to fade. She realized that the humans on this ship were different from what she had been taught. They were not cruel. They were not selfish. They cared, but danger remained. Valari ships continued to surround them, and their demands became more aggressive. One day a fleet commander called over the comm. His voice was cold and sharp.
Return the princess immediately, he demanded.
Any delay will be seen as an act of war. Daniel listened, his face grim. He looked at Lyra.
She flinched at the sound, her wings folding tightly against her back. We can't move her yet, Daniel said quietly.
She's not ready. She could die if we try. Lisa frowned.
They won't wait.
They will attack.
Daniel stood, determination in his eyes.
We'll protect her, even if it's the last thing we do.
That night the ship's alarms blared. Enemy vessels fired warning shots, cutting through the darkness of space.
The human crew scrambled, but Daniel remained focused on Lyra. She had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from the day's stress and treatments. He stayed by her bed, watching her breathing, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He thought of all the medics he had trained with, all the battles he had fought, and realized none of them mattered now. Only this one life mattered. Hours later, Lyra stirred. She opened her eyes slowly and saw him sitting there, pale from lack of rest, a faint bruise forming on his jaw from a fall earlier. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, she reached a hand weakly toward him. Daniel noticed and gently took it. "Hey," he whispered. "I'm here." Her touch was soft, almost unsure, but she did not pull away. For the first time, she let herself feel safe. Tears formed in her eyes again, not from pain, but from relief and wonder. She had been abandoned before, left to die. Now, someone stayed. Someone cared. The next morning, she tried to sit up again. This time, Daniel and Lisa supported her carefully. She moved slowly, testing her wings. The pain was still there, but it was manageable. She began to understand that healing was possible, even after betrayal and violence. "I fly?" she asked hesitantly. Daniel nodded. "Slowly. We'll help you." It took hours, but she managed to lift slightly off the bed, wings trembling. Daniel held her arms to steady her balance. Lisa watched, amazed at her resilience. As she hovered, Lyra realized something strange. She felt a spark of hope. Humans were supposed to be dangerous, unpredictable, and selfish. Yet these humans were saving her, protecting her, teaching her to live again. She did not understand fully, but she felt a small trust growing inside her. That trust, however, would soon be tested. Later that day, a Valari envoy arrived at the ship. They demanded immediate access to the princess. The human commander refused, explaining her fragile condition. The envoy sneered, claiming the humans were holding her for ransom. Lyra watched as Daniel confronted them. His voice was calm but firm. "She is not ready to travel. Any attempt to move her could kill her. We are medical professionals. We will not endanger her life." The envoy's eyes narrowed. She belongs to the Valari Empire.
Your concern is irrelevant. Give her to us.
Daniel stood taller.
We will not. You can wait until she is stable.
Until then, no one touches her. Lyra's heart raced. She wanted to intervene, but her body was still weak. She realized for the first time that her own people were willing to risk her life for their demands, while humans, who were strangers and supposed enemies, were protecting her. That night, she could not sleep. She stared at the ceiling of the medical bay, thinking about what she had seen. Betrayal from those sworn to protect her. Mercy from those she had been taught to fear. It confused her. It frightened her. It made her hope. Daniel noticed her unrest. He sat by her bed again, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It's okay, he said softly. You're safe here. No one can hurt you while I'm here. She looked at him, her wide eyes filled with tears.
Why stay? He smiled faintly. Because it's right.
Because you are alive, and you deserve a chance to live fully. Her tears fell freely now. She had never cried for kindness before. She had cried only for loss and fear. Now she cried for something she had never known. Trust. The next day she tried to speak again. Human. Kind, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Sometimes, yes. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to believe that humans were more than what her people had taught her. That maybe, in a galaxy filled with war and betrayal, there were beings capable of true compassion. But the outside threat continued. Valari fleets circled, waiting for any sign of weakness. They did not know that the princess's life was in human hands, and that one human medic would risk everything to protect her. As Lyra recovered, she began to understand something profound. Mercy could be stronger than violence, and trust could survive even in the heart of war. She still had much to learn, but in those long, tense days in the medical bay, she began to see a different future, one where humans and aliens could exist without fear, one where she could live beyond betrayal. And in that quiet medical bay, with the stars burning outside, a fragile bond grew between Princess Lyra and the human medic who refused to abandon her. A bond that would shape not only her life, but the future of the galaxy. The alarms blared across the human ship. Valari ships had formed a blockade, cutting off any chance of escape. Their weapons glowed red in space, and the messages over the comms were sharp, demanding the immediate return of Princess Lyra. Inside the medical bay, Lyra sat on her bed, her wings folded tightly against her back. She felt fear rising again, but it was mixed with something new: anger, confusion, and determination. Her life had been in human hands for days, and she had grown to trust them. Yet now her people were threatening her, claiming ownership as if her life were a tool, not a person. Daniel Carter stood beside her, calm but tense. He had assessed the fleet and knew that they could not fight them all. The humans on the ship could hold off the Valari for a short time, but if the blockade continued, the situation could escalate into a full battle. "Princess," he said softly, "we need to be careful. They will not hesitate to fire." Lyra looked at him. "They." "My people," she whispered. "They." "Want me back?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, but you are not ready to travel. If you move now, it could kill you." She swallowed hard. Fear threatened to paralyze her, but she pushed it down. She thought about the humans who had saved her, who had risked their lives without asking anything in return. They were not just helping her, they were teaching her something about trust and mercy. A voice came over the comm, loud and commanding. "Princess Lyra," said the Valari envoy, "return immediately or face consequences. Your actions endanger the Empire. You belong with us." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She had been trained to obey, to follow orders, to respect her people above all else. But now she realized that those people had left her to die once, and had done nothing while humans saved her. Could she trust them now? Could she go back? Daniel stepped closer. "You do not have to decide right now," he said, "but you must know, we will protect you as long as we can." The princess studied his face. She saw exhaustion etched into his features, the faint bruises from his own injuries, and the way his hand shook from long hours without rest. Yet he remained steadfast, placing her life above his own. Something inside her shifted. She realized that life was more than obedience. It was choice, mercy, compassion, and humans, despite everything she had been taught, had shown her both. Over the next hours, discussions and planning filled the ship. The commander prepared defensive maneuvers while Daniel and Lisa continued to care for Lyra. The princess, now stronger, began to ask questions. "Why help me?" she asked one afternoon. "Why risk life?" Daniel looked at her. "Because it's right. Because someone has to care, even when it's hard, even when others fail." Lyra tried to understand. In Valari culture, power and status ruled decisions. Mercy was rare, trust rarer. But here, before her, was proof that humans could act differently. When the Valeri envoy demanded another update, Lyra made her first choice. She raised her voice, shaky but clear, to the calm. I am alive because humans helped me," she said. "You left me to die."
They saved me. Do you?
"Not see?" The calm was silent for a moment. Then the envoy replied, voice cold. "Princess, obey. You have no right to defy orders." Lyra swallowed hard, tears forming in her eyes.
She took a deep breath. I
"Choose to stay. Safe now. Humans, protect me. They saved me." The silence on the comm was heavy. The Valari fleet did not expect this. Their princess, their sacred blood, was refusing their orders publicly. It was unheard of.
Daniel watched in awe.
He had trained for dangerous situations, but he had not expected this. Yet he felt pride, quiet but deep, knowing that the trust and care they had shown were making a difference. "Princess," he said quietly, "are you sure?" She nodded. Sure. You save me. You care." The envoy's voice over the comm rose in fury. "You betray your empire. You will regret this. Return immediately or face destruction." Lyra's wings trembled, but her voice remained steady.
"I do not regret. Life saved."
The human commander finally responded. "They will not get her today," he said firmly. "We will hold them off as long as we need. The princess will not be moved until she is ready." The Valari fleet hesitated. They had expected submission, not defiance. For the first time, they saw the strength in a human crew willing to protect a single life, even against overwhelming odds. Some began to question their orders quietly, uncertain of the wisdom of threatening someone who had already proven herself alive thanks to those humans. Inside the medical bay, Lyra looked at Daniel. "You stay?" she asked. "Always," he said simply. The next hours were tense. The Valari fired warning shots, and the human ship moved defensively, dodging debris and energy blasts. Yet the focus inside the medical bay remained on Lyra. She felt something she had never experienced before: safety. Someone was truly looking out for her, without expectation or pressure. She began to recover even faster now. The sense of trust, the knowledge that humans valued her life, gave her strength. She practiced small movements with her wings, learning to control them without pain. She learned human words more quickly, forming simple sentences to communicate. She smiled once when Daniel joked about the taste of human food compared to Valari rations. But the Valari would not give up. Their fleet continued to wait, surrounding the human ship in silent threat. Any mistake could start a full battle. Lyra realized something profound. Humans, despite being weaker in some ways, were strong in a different way. They could fight, yes, but more importantly, they could protect, care, and risk themselves for another being. This strength, compassion combined with courage, was different from anything she had seen in her empire. She also realized that her choice to stay with them was not just about safety. It was about life, about trust, about learning that mercy could be stronger than fear. She had been a pawn before, left to die by those sworn to protect her. Now, she had a choice: and she had chosen humans. Daniel stayed close, monitoring her vitals, adjusting treatments, offering quiet words of reassurance. Lisa worked alongside him, and the rest of the crew carried out defensive maneuvers without complaint. The ship moved like a single organism, focused on one life, the princess. Finally, after hours of tension, the Valeri envoy called once more. Their tone was cold but measured.
Princess Lyra, your choice has been noted.
But this does not change the laws of your empire.
Lyra looked at Daniel.
Still, stay, he nodded. You choose when the time comes. For now, you are safe. A small smile formed on her face. For the first time in her life, she felt power that was hers alone. Not power from fear, not power from obedience, not power from threats, but power from choice, from trust, and from the courage to live. The stars outside continued to shine, indifferent to the small human ship and the great Valari fleet surrounding it. But inside the ship, a quiet revolution was happening. One human medic had proven that mercy could be stronger than authority. One princess had learned that trust could survive even in a galaxy of betrayal. And though the war outside raged, the bond inside the medical bay grew stronger. Lyra, saved by humans and cared for by their compassion, realized that the galaxy could be different. That humans were not just dangerous warriors, but beings capable of hope, protection, and mercy. For the first time, she allowed herself to cry freely, tears of gratitude and wonder. She had been left in despair, abandoned by her own people. Now she was alive, cared for and protected. And that feeling, life preserved by kindness, was a force more powerful than any weapon. Daniel reached out, gently holding her hand. You are safe now, he whispered. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. Safe because you.
He shook his head slightly.
We all helped, Princess. I only stayed close. She smiled faintly. You stay, always. Outside, the Valari fleet waited, uncertain, watching the humans protect one life with unwavering determination. Inside, the princess learned the true meaning of mercy, courage, and trust. She realized that humans, despite their flaws, could inspire loyalty, hope, and change even in the darkest moments. And as she rested in the care of Daniel and the human crew, Lyra knew that her story, and the story of humanity's compassion, was only beginning. The human ship moved slowly through the edge of Valari space. The fleet still lingered, watching every movement, waiting for a sign of weakness. Princess Lyra sat in the medical bay, her wings fully healed and stretching comfortably for the first time since the attack. She had regained her strength, but more importantly, she had gained clarity. Her life had been in danger not once, but twice. First when her own people left her behind, and again when the galaxy seemed indifferent. Yet humans had saved her. Humans had protected her. Humans had risked everything for her life. Daniel Carter sat nearby, scanning the monitors for any approaching ships. His brown hair was messy, his face pale from lack of sleep, and bruises still marked his arms and legs. Yet he did not complain. He had dedicated himself entirely to keeping her alive, and he showed no signs of regret. Lyra looked at him. She had learned words in human language, and now she could speak in longer sentences. Daniel, I thank you, she said softly. He shook his head. No thanks needed. You are alive. That is enough, she smiled faintly. But I learn humans, good humans, care. Daniel nodded. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we risk ourselves to help others. It is not always easy. She considered this. In her empire, mercy was rare, and trust was dangerous. Yet she had seen it firsthand. She had seen humans act without selfishness, without fear controlling them. She had seen courage and kindness. She had seen life saved when death seemed certain. Outside, the Valari fleet had sent a representative to speak. A smaller ship approached cautiously. The Valari envoy transmitted over the comm. Princess Lyra, he said, voice cold but measured. You are recovered. We demand your immediate return. Failure to comply will be seen as rebellion.
Lyra's wings twitched nervously.
She remembered the first time she had been abandoned. She remembered the fear, the pain, the helplessness. But now she also remembered the human medic who stayed with her, the nurse who worked tirelessly, and the crew who risked everything. She spoke clearly over the comm, her voice steady. I returned, but not alone. Humans protect me. They save life. I trust. The envoy hesitated. This was unexpected. The princess was supposed to obey, not negotiate. Some soldiers murmured among themselves, questioning the wisdom of their orders. A few even paused, recalling how the humans had saved their princess when they had left her behind. Your choice is unusual, the envoy said finally, but we will allow it. Humans may accompany you back to the Empire.
Lyra's heart raced.
She had not expected mercy from her own people, yet perhaps they had learned something from what they had seen. Humans, though outsiders, had proven that compassion could be stronger than fear. Preparations began for the journey home. Daniel assisted Lyra as she tested her wings one last time aboard the human ship. She stretched carefully, feeling her strength and freedom, a stark contrast to the helplessness she had felt when first rescued. You fly well now, Daniel said. Your wings are strong. You are ready. Lyra looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. You stay. I will, he said simply, as long as you need. The journey back to the Valeri homeworld was tense. Human ships escorted the princess, demonstrating their willingness to protect her even in hostile territory. The Valeri fleet followed at a respectful distance. No one dared attack, knowing that the humans had proven themselves capable of holding their ground while saving one life. Upon arrival, Lyra was greeted by her family and the Imperial Council. She was fully healed, standing tall with confidence she had never known before. She spoke clearly, recounting her experience with humans. They risk life, she said. They save me. They care without selfishness.
I see humans different.
Some in the council were skeptical, unwilling to believe that humans could act purely out of compassion. Others were silent, thoughtful. The princess had survived, and humans had protected her in ways the council could not ignore. Over time, her story spread throughout the empire. Recordings of her medical treatment, of Daniel's tireless care, and of the human crew's courage circulated widely. The people saw that humans could be dangerous in battle, yes, but that they could also be merciful, honorable, and protective. Lyra, now fully in charge of her own decisions, implemented changes. She ordered that all Imperial medical academies study human battlefield medicine, not just for effectiveness, but for the values of care and mercy demonstrated. She established diplomatic ties that emphasized collaboration, not fear. Daniel returned to human space eventually, but Lyra kept in touch. She visited when possible, bringing alien knowledge and stories, learning from humans as they had learned from her. In time, the galaxy began to notice. Other alien species observed humanity differently. Humans were no longer seen only as conquerors or merciless warriors. They were also protectors, capable of acts of mercy that inspired loyalty and trust. For Lyra, the lessons were personal. She had learned that life was precious, that trust could be given, and that courage was not only the act of battle, but also the act of protecting another being, even at great risk. One evening, as she watched the sun rise over the Valeri homeworld, she remembered the moment she had first opened her eyes in the human medical bay. She remembered the fear, the pain, and the tears. She remembered Daniel's calm hands and unwavering presence, and she realized something profound. Humans had saved more than her life. They had saved her faith in kindness, courage, and hope. Years later, Lyra became a powerful leader, respected across the galaxy. She remembered the humans who had taught her mercy and courage. She ensured that peace and cooperation became the guiding principles of her reign. Every Valeri student learned about the human medic who had saved a princess, and about the lessons of trust, compassion, and selfless courage. Daniel's name was remembered quietly among his crew, not for medals or fame, but for courage and mercy. He had acted without expectation, without hesitation, and in doing so had changed the course of a princess's life, As the stars continued to shine, the galaxy remembered the story. A human medic had risked everything to save a princess. The princess had chosen life and trust over fear and obedience. And humanity, for all its flaws, had proven that mercy could be stronger than war, and courage stronger than fear. Princess Lyra's life had been forever changed. The Empire had been forever changed. And the galaxy, slowly but surely, had learned a lesson. Humans were dangerous, yes, but unstoppable when they chose to protect life with courage, care, and mercy. And in the quiet halls of the medical academy she had founded, young aliens whispered her name, and the story of a human medic who had saved a princess became legend, inspiring generations to come. The galaxy was at war, yet hope survived. Humanity's true power was not in weapons or numbers, but in the courage to act with mercy, and that courage had changed everything. Princess Lyra smiled softly as she walked through the gardens of her palace. She could feel the strength in her wings, the trust in her heart, and the gratitude for those who had saved her. Somewhere across the stars, Daniel Carter continued his work, unaware of the full impact of his actions, but the galaxy would never forget. And the story ended not with a battle, not with death, but with life preserved, trust restored, and the promise of a better future, all because one human medic chose to save a princess.